the ability to think clearly and rationally. That's the one thing we can't lose. We're going to need it to rebuild this nation for the next generations to come. All right, let's bring in former governor of Arkansas and former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee to expose Biden's lies on the current state of the economy. Mike, I watched this thing. It was lie, and then take a breather and lie some more. I don't mean to be mean to the guy, but it was all bull crap. It was all bull crap. It was an oxymoron to call that stuff Bidenomics, because nothing about what Biden's doing is a successful economic policy. Your thoughts on what you heard?
Well, my good friend Larry Gatlin would call that bovine droppings, just to be a little polite about the whole thing. But you pretty well nailed it. I mean, there's no real sense that anybody in America is saying, wow, the economy is just doing so well under Joe Biden. First of all, they know what it's costing them to go buy groceries. They know what it's costing them to buy gas. And they know what it was like when Trump was president. And so they look at the comparison. They look at utilities. They look at clothing. Travel is up substantially from what it was. If you just start taking everything into consideration, I don't know of anybody who's saying, wow, I'm doing so much better. And the interest rates, I was thinking about maybe refinancing my home. I had one of those 3-point rates that I had under Trump, and now I can get one for 8%. Boy, I'd like to refinance so I could make my bank wealthier. Across the board, Eric, the economy is not done well under Joe Biden, and I don't know how anybody pretends that it is.
Yeah, Mike, you and I have talked about this for a very, very long time. Interest rates are high because they're trying to stave off additional inflation, which is at 4%. Trump gave them a 1.4% inflation rate. Here's what really ticked me off, Mike, is when he started talking about, we brought the deficit down. We brought the deficit down. That is the most bovine droppings, or whatever what your friends calls it. No deficits are coming down. We're at $31.5 trillion in debt. We're going to be $40 trillion in debt in just a few years. And the only way you get there, Joe Bidenomics, is by a deficit that is increasing. In other words, you're spending more than you're taking in, the definition of deficits. Why do they think they can lie to us and we'll buy it?
I think a lot of the reason is, Eric, is the news media is going to cover for him. They're not going to challenge him. They're not going to go on the air and say, we've been doing some fact-checking here, and it's just not checking out. They will never fact-check a Democrat, and certainly not Joe Biden. So they let him get away with it. And a lot of people have just enough knowledge to be dangerous, so they hear it, and nobody challenges it at this network they watch, and they assume it must be true. But it isn't true. He hasn't reduced the deficit. He certainly hasn't reduced spending. Now, let's be fair. The Republicans haven't done too great a job at cutting spending either. Part of that is because they can keep spending and pass the problem on to the next generation. One of the reasons, Eric, I'm on a national committee for the balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. I serve with several other current and former governors and senators. And the reason? Because every governor has to balance his or her budget. The federal government doesn't have to by law. So many of us have said, let's make that the federal government has to do what all 50 states, well, 49, Vermont doesn't have to, but they do it anyway. But what the states do, and that is they live within a balanced budget by law. Make Congress live under a balanced budget. Force it, and they'll actually get it done.
You know, it shouldn't be lost on anyone that this speech was given in Chicago, a union shop, a union stronghold. Governor Pritzker there is heavily union-backed. Chicago is it's a political machine that just feeds the union jobs, and the union feeds the political machine, Democrats, donations. So I'm watching this thing, and I'm thinking, this is a payoff to the unions. This is a payoff to the green energy apocalypse thugs. He was just giving away. He was giving away the American taxpayers' money.
There's no doubt about that. And look, I'm not an anti-union guy. I think unions have had a place historically. But in many cases, they really don't have a lot of value for the worker because they pay high union dues, and they don't get much to show for that. You know, they end up feeding the union bosses. They live like kings, but the union workers don't necessarily benefit. But the point here is that Joe Biden has pretended that he's done great things for the unions. When he talks about how many jobs he created, let's just put that in perspective. We lost millions of jobs because of COVID, and the government told everybody they had to shut their businesses down. So yeah, there was rampant unemployment. Then suddenly we got through the pandemic and people went back to work. Those aren't new job creations. Those are people going to jobs that they had to quit because the government told them they did. So this is, again, nonsense when Biden pretends, look at all these jobs I have created. No, Joe, let's look at how many jobs got destroyed because the government policy under both Republican and Democrat administrations really wasn't based on the best science.
You know, he lied about the deficit. He lied about the national debt. He lied about jobs, as you point out. He talked a big game about green energy, but you can't have it both ways. If you want to push green energy, gas prices are going to go up. They have to. Electricity prices are going to go up. They have to. You know, and wages, though. You mentioned high interest rates. When inflation is 4, 5, 6, 7, 9%, and wages go up by 1 or 2%, that is real loss. That's the real actual net loss of wages. So this idea that wages are going up, they're not even close enough to compete with inflation. You have $1, it's going to be less. It's worth less than it was when he was elected. It's going to be worth less when he's unelected in 2024.
It's a real gut punch, and that's what Americans are feeling. But Joe doesn't understand it. He doesn't feel it. My gosh, he doesn't even know how to get off the platform when he finishes a speech. Somebody's got to come up and lead him by the hand off the stage. But here's what people know. When you have interest rates that climb to the level that they have in a short period of time, it means the American family's buying power has been gut punched. So you were thinking about buying a new house, going to be a smaller one now. You were thinking about adding a room or doing some landscaping. Probably you're not, especially if you have to finance it. So all of those things that Americans were in the process of doing and wanting to do and even having the money to do under Trump because of deregulation and tax cuts, now those things have to be shelved. And you can't go buy a car on credit or some big ticket item because the cost of it has gone up dramatically.
Again, because the cost has gone up, the cost has gone up because of higher interest rates. Higher interest rates are there to compete, to combat Joe Biden's higher inflation because of all of his government spending. Mike, those governors that you're working with, former governors, keep it going because a balanced budget would be heavenly, so to speak. Governor Mike Huckabee, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.